All right, so you're ready to dive into some real-life scary stories. I have to admit, even I'm a little creeped out by this one.
Yeah, there's definitely something about horror that draws us in, even when we know it's not real.
Right. It's like we can't help but look, even though we know it might scare us.
Exactly, like peeking through your fingers during a scary movie.
Haha, exactly. So we're going to be diving into Mr. Nightmare's YouTube channel today.
Specifically, his video, 10 Terrifying True Scary Stories, Volume 9.
Yeah, Volume 9. So he's got quite a collection of these going.
He does, and they're always a fun listen, even if they do keep you up at night.
Well, let's start with The Lurker by the Pond, shall we?
You're right.
This one starts out almost peaceful, a woman home alone, enjoying a quiet evening.
And it's that piece that makes the story so effective when it's disrupted.
Right, so she's by the pond and she hears splashing in these heavy footsteps.
All classic horror tropes, those sounds instantly signal danger.
Yeah, like in a movie, you know those sounds mean something bad's about to happen.
Exactly, and then of course the story takes that classic home invasion trope,
Oh yeah, turns a place that should be safe and comforting into a source of terror.
which really amplifies the fear, right? Because your home is where you should feel most secure.
It's terrifying. The story mentions she finds footprints under her deck the next morning too.
Ooh, that detail really adds to the vulnerability, the feeling of being watched.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if it had been her dog out there instead of her.
That's a good point. The absence of a protective figure like a dog does make her seem even more vulnerable.
Like she's completely alone with this potential threat.
Alone and with no way to defend herself, which really plays into our primal fear of being helpless.
Okay, well, I'm definitely checking my locks tonight.
Me too. But I think it's also interesting how this story taps into a much deeper fear.
Oh.
Like what?
Well, the fear of home invasion specifically, it's rooted in our evolutionary history.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, back when our homes were our only protection against predators. Wow, so this isn't just some random scary story, it's hitting on something much deeper.
Exactly. It's tapping into a fear that we all share on some level.
So are you saying we should all be terrified of our homes?
No, not at all. It's just fascinating how these stories can bring these deep-seated fears to the surface.
So moving on from lurking pond people, what about this next story? The muffled plea for help.
This one is definitely creepy in a different way.
Definitely, this one focuses on a dog walker who hears a child's voice calling for help.
But it's not just any child's voice, right? There's something off about it.
Yes. That's what I found so unsettling. It's described as sounding like both a child and an adult.
And there's no emotion in it, just this flat, monotone help.
Yeah, like a robot child asking for help. Gives me chills just thinking about it.
It's a perfect example of the uncanny valley effect.
Oh, what?
The uncanny valley, it's this feeling of unease we get when something is almost human but slightly off.
Oh, like those creepy realistic dolls. I hate those.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to recognize human faces and voices, but when something is just a little bit wrong.
It's like our internal alarm bells start going off.
Precisely. And in the story, it's the voice that triggers that uncanny valley response.
Because it sounds human, but just not quite right.
Right, and that makes it far more unsettling than if it were just an obviously fake voice.
So the story is playing on our fear of something that seems human but isn't.
Exactly. It's messing with our perception of what's real and what's not.
Well, I'm never looking at those realistic dolls the same way again.
You and me both.
Okay, well, enough about creepy dolls. What about this story, The Secret Passage? This one brought back some childhood anxieties for me.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
It features a kid whose bedroom is literally connected to the woods by a secret tunnel.
Wow, that's like every parent's nightmare.
Right, talk about a violation of your safe space.
And what I find fascinating about this story is the slow buildup of strange occurrences.
Oh yeah, the nightlight changing colors, unplugging itself, then disappearing.
It creates this sense of dread, this feeling that something isn't right.
But the kid doesn't know what it is until he finds that tunnel,
And then there's the gaslighting element, where the boy's parents dismiss his concern.
making him doubt what he's seeing and experiencing.
Right, adding this layer of psychological manipulation to the whole thing.
So not only is there this creepy tunnel, but he can't even trust his own parents to believe him.
And that makes the whole situation even scarier, right? Because who do you turn to when the people you trust the most don't believe you?
It's heartbreaking. It's like the adults are almost as scary as the tunnel itself.
And the tunnel itself is such a powerful symbol, you know? It's a secret point of entry.
A place where someone or something could be watching him without him even knowing.
Exactly. It completely undermines his sense of security.
It makes you realize how vulnerable we are, especially as children.
Absolutely. And that feeling of vulnerability is really at the heart of a lot of these stories.
You know, it's interesting, these first three stories we've talked about, they all have this theme of invasion.
Oh, how so?
Well, you've got the stranger lurking outside the house, the strange voice calling for help.
And then the tunnel leading right into the kid's bedroom.
Exactly. It's like these stories are all playing on our fear of having our personal space violated.
That is interesting. It seems like this fear of invasion, whether it's physical or psychological, is a recurring theme in horror.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what it is about that fear that's so primal, so universal.
Well, maybe that's something we can explore as we delve into the rest of these stories.
Okay, well, I'm ready for the next one if you are.
Let's do it. It really makes you think about the boundaries we create, and how easily they can be broken.
Okay, so maybe we should stick to less unsettling territory, like international drug deals. I'm only half kidding, but the next story, the Berlin drug deal, definitely has a different vibe.
This one is a bit more gritty, takes us out of the quiet suburbs.
Yeah, this one's about a guy, Leo, who's stranded in Berlin.
He lost his apartment keys, ended up sleeping under a bridge.
Not the safest choice, right?
Not exactly, and that's where he witnesses this whole drug deal gone wrong.
Wow, I can only imagine how vulnerable he must have felt, alone in a foreign country.
Right. No way to access his belongings, and then suddenly he's caught up in this dangerous situation.
It really highlights how fragile our sense of security can be.
Especially when we're outside our comfort zones, that's for sure.
So this story taps into that fear of the unknown, that potential for violence lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. It's a reminder that danger can be anywhere, even in seemingly safe cities.
Especially when we're vulnerable, you're right.
And it makes you think about all the times you've been in unfamiliar places.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation while traveling where you felt genuinely unsafe?
I'm not sure I'd call it unsafe, but I once got hopelessly lost in Venice at night.
Oh no.
It was definitely unsettling, all those maze-like streets and dark corners.
I bet your imagination must have been running wild.
It definitely was, but it made me more aware of my surroundings after that.
Okay, well, let's move on to a story that might feel a little more familiar, at least to anyone who's ever been to high school. The high school bathroom stall.
Ah, yes, the high school bathroom. A place of both routine and potential horror.
This one's about a teenage girl who has a truly creepy encounter in, well, the bathroom.
It plays with the idea of the unseen observer, which is always unsettling.
So the storyteller, she's in the stall, and she hears the door open and close.
But she doesn't hear anything after that, no footsteps or anything.
And then when she comes out, her friend tells her someone was standing right behind her the whole time.
Wow, that is seriously freaky.
The idea of someone being so close, yet completely unseen.
It messes with your sense of perception, your personal space.
Absolutely, especially in a place where you expect privacy.
This story, and others like it, really challenge our assumptions about safety and control.
Like, we think we're aware of what's going on around us, but this story shows how easily we can be fooled.
Exactly, and to make it even creepier, there's no explanation given for why that person was standing there.
Right, we're left wondering, was it a prank? A ghost? Some kind of glitch in the matrix?
The ambiguity is what makes it so unsettling. It forces us to confront the unknown.
Okay, moving on from creepy bathroom encounters, let's talk about stalker notes.
Ah, yes, the stalker notes. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying threats come from people we don't even know.
This one's about a woman who starts receiving these increasingly creepy notes from an unknown stalker.
It's a very real and relatable fear, being watched and targeted by someone you can't identify.
The story describes how the stalker's behavior escalates over time, starting with compliments and then escalating to threats.
Creating the sense of mounting dread and powerlessness for the victim.
And what's even scarier is that she takes precautions, like involving the police, but the notes keep coming.
It highlights the insidious nature of stalking, how it can start subtly and then spiral out of control.
It's a reminder that we're not always as safe as we think we are.
Sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight.
Okay, deep breaths everyone. Let's move on to a story that explores the dark side of online dating. The Oakland setup.
This one serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of trusting strangers online.
Our storyteller matches with a woman on Tinder, and things seem to be going well at first.
But then she suggests they go back to her place, which happens to be in a high-crime area.
Red flag number one, right?
Absolutely, and when they get there, it turns out to be a trap.
The woman is underage, And her accomplices threaten to accuse him of a crime unless he helps them distribute drugs.
It's a terrifying reminder that not everyone online is who they claim to be.
And that even seemingly innocent interactions can have dangerous consequences.
This story really plays on our anxieties about technology and how it can be used to exploit us.
The anonymity of the internet can definitely create a false sense of security.
It makes us more willing to trust people we wouldn't normally trust in person.
It's a good reminder to be cautious about who we trust and the information we share online.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between being open to new connections and protecting ourselves.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a story that explores the fear of the unknown with a dash of paranoia thrown in. The Van and the Abandoned Gas Station.
This one's about a man who becomes increasingly suspicious of his neighbor's strange nighttime activities.
He notices this black van parked in his neighbor's driveway every night.
And then he sees his neighbor carrying a heavy bag out to the van, which really piques his curiosity.
It's like a puzzle he can't resist solving.
Exactly. He follows the van to an abandoned gas station in the middle of the woods.
But his attempt to investigate triggers the alarm, and he has to flee.
The story plays with our natural curiosity, but it also taps into that fear of the unknown.
That feeling that something sinister is happening right under our noses.
And the ending is particularly interesting because the mystery is never fully resolved.
We know the neighbor was arrested, but we don't know what he was doing.
It's like the story saying that sometimes it's better not to know the truth.
Speaking of unexplained events, let's talk about the demon scratch.
This one blurs the lines between dreams and reality.
It's about a man who starts having these vivid nightmares about a demonic creature.
And then he wakes up with these mysterious scratches on his body.
It makes you question the boundaries between what's real and what's imagined.
Exactly. Taps into that primal fear of our dreams invading our waking lives.
So, the protagonist and his roommate, they try to find a rational explanation for the scratches.
But they can't. And then, in a truly chilling twist, they hear a noise under the bed.
Talk about a jump scare.
It's like the story is confirming that their fears weren't just in their heads.
But even after the intruder is gone, the question remains. Was this person just a random burglar, or was there something more to it?
Right. Was it somehow connected to the demonic figure from the nightmares? The story leaves that possibility open.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out now. I think I need a nightlight and maybe a security system.
Perhaps we should take a break before we delve into the final story. I have a feeling it's going to be a particularly chilling one. All right, ready to dive into our final story?
As ready as I'll ever be, I guess. Hit me with it.
This one is called The Toy Car. And it's all about that classic fear of toys coming to life.
Ooh, yeah. That one gets me every time. It's like a childhood fear that never really goes away.
There's something about inanimate objects taking on a life of their own, especially toys, that's just inherently creepy.
It's like they represent innocence, so when they become scary, it's extra unsettling.
Exactly. It's like this violation of something pure and childlike.
So tell me about this toy car. What makes it so creepy?
Well, the story is told from the perspective of a young boy who shares a room with his brother.
Okay, so far so good.
And they have this toy race car that makes sounds and lights up.
Sounds pretty standard.
It does. Until one night, they hear the car activate on its own in the middle of the night.
Oh no, that's definitely not standard.
At first, they think one of them is playing a prank, but they both deny it.
So then what happens?
Then it happens again. The car lights up and moves across the floor as if someone is controlling it.
Okay, I'd be freaking out at that point, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. It's that repetition that really makes it scary. It's not just a one-time glitch.
And the fact that both brothers witness it, it means they can't just dismiss it as one of them imagining things.
Exactly. It adds a layer of credibility to the experience.
So what do the parents do?
Unfortunately, they don't believe the boys. They dismiss it as overactive imaginations.
Oh no, that's like the worst case scenario in these kinds of stories.
It is because it plays into that fear of not being believed by the adults who are supposed to protect you.
And as a kid, that can be incredibly isolating and scary to feel like no one believes you.
Right, it adds this layer of psychological horror to the story.
So how does the story end? Do they ever figure out what's going on with the car?
In the end, the father just smashes the toy car to put an end to the strange occurrences.
Wow, that's a pretty drastic solution.
It is, and it doesn't really address the underlying anxiety or the trauma of not being believed.
It's like they're trying to eliminate the source of fear without actually dealing with the fear itself.
Exactly, and that leaves a lingering sense of unease even after the story is over.
It's a powerful ending that really makes you think. It reminds us that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding under the bed.
But the ones who refuse to acknowledge the very real fears of children?
Well, we've reached the end of our journey into the shadows, haven't we? We've covered everything from home invasions to haunted toys.
We have, and I have to say, it's been quite a ride.
It has. So what have we learned from all these scary stories?
Well, for one thing, we've learned that fear is a powerful emotion.
It can definitely keep you up at night, that's for sure.
But it's also a part of what makes us human. It's a natural response to danger.
But how do we find that balance? How do we acknowledge our fears without letting them control us?
I think it starts with awareness. By understanding what scares us, we can start to gain a sense of control.
So the more we talk about our fears, the less power they have over us.
Exactly, and sometimes just sharing our fears with others can help to diminish them.
Well, that's why I love doing this deep dive with you. It's not just about telling scary stories, it's about exploring the deeper meaning behind them.
And hopefully in the process, we can all learn to navigate the shadows a little more confidently.
So, listener, as you go about your day, remember that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create in our own minds.
Stay curious, stay aware, and maybe sleep with a nightlight on for good measure.
And on that note, we'll leave you to your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into real-life scary stories. And we'll see you next time for another exploration into the unknown.